Good morning. Welcome back. So, till now in Constructors and Destructors chapter, we have completed what are constructors and how are they different from member functions of the class, what are the characteristics of constructors, the types of constructors like default, parameterized constructors with default arguments, and then the copy constructor. How to invoke them, that is the implicit call, explicit call, and with equal to. So we also did overloading of constructors, like what is overloading. So what are overloading of constructors and how to invoke them. And we finished with one lab program, which is generation of a series. Find the sum of series, that is 1 plus x square up to x raised to n using constructors. So in today's class we will start with copy constructors. So what do you mean by a copy constructor? As the name suggests, copy, it is a parameterized constructor using which one object can be copied into the another object, and it has to be noted here that both the objects are of the same class. Like you can create a copy of one object of the class. You can copy the data of one object to another. As we all know, if for example a class has 3 data members x, y, z, and you have 4 objects, all the 4 can have different values of x, y, z, right? So in copy constructor you can create, that is you can copy one object to another. In other words, I can say the copy constructor is a constructor which creates an object by initializing it with an object of the same class which has been previously created, which means that initializing means giving an initial value, right? So you can create an object and initialize it to another object, that is it will have the same values as another object in the time of creation, but provided they are of the same class. Getting it? Now we'll go through this. When do we use copy constructor? To initialize an object with the values of an already existing objects, correct? When objects has to be returned as function values. If you want to return an object, what you can do is you can declare an object and initialize it to already existing object and return it. You can do that. And when you declare an object, declare a new object, and existing object can be passed as a parameter to it, so that a copy constructor is invoked and the copy of it is made. So please go through this. It's a 5-marker question. They can ask you about copy constructor. The next is the general syntax of a copy constructor. This is constructor means the same name as the class name. So again the copy constructor will also have the same name as the class name, and only thing is it take the reference of an object, class name space ampersand this one. Whenever I say class type, it is always an object, and you will have the initialization statements here. So when we write a program, you will be very clear with this. For now, you just note down the syntax of it. Write a program to find the product of two numbers using copy constructor. So we will write this. When I am writing the program, I will explain it to you in detail. Fine. So next, copy constructor. How do I write it outside the class? See, I have declared it inside the class, but then I am writing it outside. So defining its outside class name, because the constructor will not have any return type. So I will have the class name, and then this is how you write a copy constructor. class name again? Because it is the function name also, because constructor has the same name as the class name. So the class name scope resolution operator, again the class name, and this is, if I am passing an integer value, I would have written int x or int percent x is the reference what address of x if I am passing. But here, since I am passing an object, the data type should be the class name, because as we all know, class is a user defined data type. So when I am passing an object, or also it is called as a class type. So then class name ampersand the object. Here is nothing but a pointer, which is an object I am passing, the reference of an object, and then the body of the constructor. Getting it? Please make it down, the constant reference type. That is why I am using this. Next, situations. When do you use a copy constructor? So I said when you want to give initial values, like I have, for example, x is a class. So what is the name of the class? X. What am I doing here? I am creating an object. Creating an object A1, correct? What is this? X is a class, A1 is the object. Class name space the object name. So A1 I am creating an object of the class X. So what am I doing here? Creating object A2 and initializing it to A1. So I am making A2 will be a copy of A1. So I am creating an object A2 and then initializing it to A1. So A1 is already created, so it is an existing object. So this is called initialization. Getting it? For example, if I do like this, x A1 comma A2, then A2 is equal to A1. What do you mean by that? This is called assignment. Like I am assigning, I have already created an object here, then I am assigning this A2, I am assigning the values of A1 to A2. Here I am initializing, because during creation only I am giving an initial value. Assignment and initialization. So next is when you are returning. We went through that in the heading only, like when you are returning the values, function values from a function. What am I doing here? X test. So what does it mean? Test is the name of the function and it is going to return a class type. How do I normally write? If I write int test, so it means that test is going to return an integer value. Here I am giving the class name, it means it is going to return an object, right? So x, this is what I am doing. Inside the test function, I am creating an object A1 for the class x. Then again I am creating another object A2 and then giving the initializing it to A1. So I am returning A2 here. So A1 and A2 will have the same values. So when I return A2, it's like nothing but A1 values are also being written, because A1 and A2 are having the same values in this place. Getting it? Please go through this. So you know what is initialization, what is assignment, and how to return a value. Here I am creating an object A1 for the class X, then I am creating object A2 and then giving an initial value A1 and then I am returning A2. So when you want to return objects as function values. Now let me write the program. What was the statement of the program? The statement was a program to find the product of two numbers using copy constructor. So you have to use the copy constructor to find the product of two numbers. So how do I start it? Start it with my hash include statements. So hope you know what we are writing for. We need to ask the user to enter two values. and then I need to find the product and display. This is a very simple program, but then I need to use copy constructor in this. So how do I make use of that? We will do now. In this program, we'll understand that. Hash include iostream.h. on io.h. Next is my class declaration. So what will I name my class? Let me name it as product only. Since I am finding the product of two numbers, let me name it as product only. So private, again private is the access specifier. It has to be in lowercase. Then I have three data members. Let it be A, B and P. So data members of the type integer are 3. Then public, let me say product int comma int product. So ampersand. Next is void display. End of my class here. So I have, this is a constructor. What is it? It's a parameterized constructor. It's a constructor because it has the same name as a class name and it does not have a return type, and it is declared in the public section of the class. Then you have this. So what am I passing? I am passing an object reference, ampersand. So I am passing an object here. That is why it is a copy constructor. And what is this? A member function. And this is the class. Okay. So this is how my class would look, wherein I have 3 data members. So the name of my class is product. It has 3 data members of type integer in the private section A, B and P. So in the public I have 2 constructors. One is a parameterized constructor which takes in 2 integer values, and then I have a copy constructor, and then I have a member function which does not take in any arguments and which do not return any value. So this is my class. Please make a note of this. Next, I'll start my parameterized constructor. Fine. So there is no return type. Name of the class to which it belongs to is product, and then the constructor. And then it int and int. So it is going to take 2 integer values. So let me say int n1. So n1 and n2 are formal parameters. What am I doing? A is equal to n1. So where was A were declared? A was declared in the class. So A, B and P are integer values. So what am I doing? A is equal to n1. I am assigning the value of n1 to A, and here I am assigning the value of n2 to B. This is what I am doing in my parameterized constructor. That is, I am giving value for A as n1 and for B as n2, and n1 and n2 are formal parameters which are passed from main. When I create an object, I will pass it. Next is my copy constructor. Now I will write my copy constructor. How do I write it? The return type is not there. So name of the class to which it belongs to is product, scope resolution operator, then the name of the function open and close brackets. So it takes one argument of type product. Let N3 be the object. Okay. So what will I say? A is equal to N3 dot A. B is equal to N3 dot B. So I'm just assigning the value N3 dot A and N3 dot B. A and B. So when I pass this object here, if I pass from the main, then whatever object I pass, the same values would be stored in A and B. If I have 4 objects, A1, A2, A3 and A4, and I am passing only A3, then what happens is the values of A3 objects A and B would be stored for this also. Getting it? Please make a note of it. After that, I still am left with one member function, right? And I have only have values for A and B. I have to still find the product and then display. That is what I am writing my program for. So how do I write the display function outside? Return type void. Name of the class to which it belongs to is product. Scope resolution operator and display. So in this I will say the product of A and B is equal to A star B. So what am I doing here? I am just writing the output statement. The product of would be printed as it is. A's value would be printed, and will be printed as it is. B and B's value will be printed equal to, then it will find the product A star B and print it. So this is my display function. I finished with my copy constructor, parameterized constructor and display function. Now let me write my main function. So how do I start it? Before this, I have finished my parameterized constructor, copy constructor, and then I finished the display function also. And in display function, I am just printing the value of A and B along with the product. So now void main, I have clear screen, then int x comma y. Why do I have x and y? Because I need to pass two integer values to the parameterized constructor, right, during object creation. So for that reason I need to take in those values. Let me not hard code it. Let me take in the values, because if I give x is equal to 10 or y is equal to 20, it will only work for 10 and 20, right? So we will not be writing a program only for those two values. Your program should work for different values. So for that reason, I'll not be hard coding the values or giving an initial value to it. I will take it from the user. Fine. How do I write it? Cout and enter two numbers. Then cin x, y. So what is this? This is called cascading of input operator. I am taking in the values of x and y. So now what am I doing? I am going to invoke the parameterized constructor. So let me do it using explicit call. So what is the syntax of it? Class name, then the object name, let the object be P1, and then is equal to the constructor. What is the constructor? Again product and then x comma y. So x and y will go to the parameterized constructor there. In parameterized constructor, what have I written? I have written the values like a and b were declared in the, remember, a and b were declared in the class. So a is nothing but x is nothing but a is equal to x, b is equal to y. Getting it? A and b, and I am passing x and y. So a is equal to x and b is equal to y, whatever value I pass, and then I will call my copy constructor. How do I do that? P2. I am creating a new object P2 and I am passing the already existing object P1 as an argument to it. Getting it? I am creating a new object P2 and I am passing an already existing argument because I have taken in the values of x and y, and then I am passing that with the for object P1 to the constructor. So P1 will have a and b values, nothing but x and y values. So now again I am creating one more object P2 and I am passing P1 as an argument. So in the copy constructor I had written a is equal to n3 dot x, or that one, right? So n3 dot a. So which one it will be? So a is equal to p1 dot a. Whatever is the p1 dot a value will get substituted here, p1 dot b. So whatever is the value of a and b for p1 object, the same value will be copied for p2 object also. After that, p1 dot display. What does the display function do? The display function is just printing the product of and then the product of a and b. For example, if I write x is equal to 2 and y is equal to 3. So it will go there, a is equal to 2 it will become and b is equal to 3. Then I am printing a cross b, that is 2 cross 3, which is nothing but 6. Correct? So same way, when I call p1 dot display function, it will print me 6. Now let me call p2 dot display. That also would print me 6 only, because I am making a copy of p1 object into p2. So whatever is the values of a and b for p1 will be the same for p2 also. So again it will be product of 2 and 3, that is nothing but 6. So please have a look. This completes your program with copy constructor. Hope you have understood copy constructors, which is a 5-marker chapter. We completed all the different types of constructors and we wrote programs. Now we have come to the last topic of this chapter, that is destructors. So what is a destructor? In C++, destructor is a special member function that is executed automatically when an object is destroyed that has been created by the constructor. So what does it do? It is used to deallocate memory that has been allocated for the object by the constructor. In other words, it means it frees memory back to heap. That is, a destructor again is a function that automatically executes when an object is destroyed. For every object, again it will execute. Like there are 10 objects for a class, then when you destroy the 10 for each object, again the destructor gets executed. So we'll study about the characteristics of destructors now. And again the destructor will also have the same name as the class name, and it also does not have any return type. The only difference between the constructor and the destructor is before the name. For example, if show is the class and this is the constructor, then this is the destructor. So it is, the destructor name has the same name as the class name preceded by a tilde sign. This one is the tilde sign. It is on the below the escape key on your keyboard, and then the class name. Fine, and then again it's a function. So it is like this. This is a destructor, and it is mainly used for deallocating or freeing memory. Getting it? The destructor do not take any arguments, so cannot be overloaded. So there are no arguments means no overloading. And the destructor has no return type, similar to the constructor, same name as the class name. It is a special function and it is only having the tilde sign prior to that. Okay, and then it does not return any value, and each class will have only one destructor. Why is that? Because you cannot overload a destructor, does not take any argument, so you have only one destructor for each class, and it is declared in the public class declaration. So next chapter when we do inheritance, that time we will know exactly what inheritance is, but for now you know that the destructor cannot be inherited. That is, if from base class to the derived class or from the parent class to the child class, it cannot be inherited. So the destructor is same name as the class name. The destructor do not take any arguments, so cannot be overloaded, and since I cannot overload it, I will have only one destructor in my class, and the destructor has no return type. It has to be declared in the public access of the class declaration, and it cannot be inherited. These are the characteristics of destructors. Please go through this. Then I will write one program for destructor and I'll write the output and I'll tell you how it works. And this is again a 5-marker question. What is a destructor? What are the characteristics of it? All this would be asked in your exam. Now, let us write one program using destructors. So, illustrate the use of destructors. So, let me start it with hash include statements. Hash include iostream.h hash hash include con.io.h. Let me print a number also here, wherein, so let me name it as show. Okay, class is a keyword, show is the name of the class, and then in the private let me have int a. It's an integer variable. In the public section let me have show, then let me have void print, and then let me have show, which is a destructor. Let me end my class here. So what is this? The class data members, and then this is constructor, This is member function. And this is a destructor. So class show, the name of the class is show. In the private section I have one variable a of type integer type, and then in the public I have show. It is a default constructor, which means that I am not passing any arguments to it, and it will have no return type because constructors do not have any return type. And then I have a member function print, to which I am not passing any arguments, and it is not going to return any arguments because I have written it as void print. So no return, no argument, member function. After that, this is the tilde sign, and then the name of the class, it's a function. So this itself is a destructor, and destructor has no return type and it does not take any arguments as per the characteristics of destructors, and I have declared in the public section of the class. And then I have closed my class bracket. So have a look, make a note of this, then we can write the remaining ones. So let me start with show, the constructor. So the class to which, how do I write show? The class to which it belongs to. Shows, because there is no return type for the constructor, that is why I will start with the name of the class. Scope resolution operator, then the constructor. In the constructor, let me write cout in the show class constructor. Then I will say a. We have declared a already. Let me say it is 100. I am giving an initial value for a and I am closing it. So what am I writing here? First line I am writing in the show class constructor. So every time this constructor is run, when will it run? Whenever I create an object, because it is the default constructor. So every time I create a new object for the class, the default constructor gets automatically executed. So when I create an object, this gets executed, this constructor gets executed, and then in the show class constructor would be printed and the variable a would get initialized to 100. Fine. After that, let me write the member function print. So how do I write that? The return type of the function, the name of the class to which it belongs to, scope resolution operator, and name of the function. So let me say cout endl, then a is equal to a, then endl. So this is my member function. What am I doing? I am writing a is equal to as it is, it gets printed, and then 100 would be printed here because in the constructor I have given an initial value to a as 100. So 100 would be printed here. Whenever I call the function print, this one would be printed. A is equal to 100. Fine. So have a look and make a note. Then we will write the destructor here. Now let me write the destructor. How do I write it? How does the destructor name of the class to which the destructor belongs to? Show, scope resolution operator, and name of the function. After that, I will just write cout endl in the show class destructor. So every time object is destroyed, this will be executed. See, there are 10 objects, then only for all the 10 objects the same destructor would be run 10 times. It is not like when you exit the program, this destructor only gets run 10 times, because each class will have only one destructor, and the same destructor deallocates memory when the objects get destroyed. Getting it? Then after that, let me write my main function. Please make a note of this. Now let me write a main function. I will say int main, then see, void main means anyway main does not return any value, but just if I say int main or main, by default the return type would be int for a function. Now first I have to create one object. Let me say show yes. I have created an object, and after that yes dot print. Then show s2. I am creating one more object. After that return 0. Then I am closing my main. So this is my main function. What do I have in my main function? I have clear screen, leave that. It is int main, so anything integer I am returning 0. Return 0 means main, that is the program executed successfully without any errors. That is what return 0 means. Let me say clear screen. What does this line do? I am creating an object yes. So when I create this object, the default constructor would be run. Yes or no? So the default constructor would be run. When the default constructor is run, what happens? I have a statement there. In the constructor, I had written in the show class constructor. So it will print in the show class constructor, right? When this statement gets executed, when I create an object, the default constructor would be run automatically. In that I have a cout statement in the show class constructor. After that I am assigning the value of a to 100. I don't have any cout statement a is equal to 100 over there, so only the value of a gets assigned. It will not be printed here when the object is created. Only this line gets printed. In the second line, what do I do? S dot print. So I am calling the member function print. So what have I written in that? I have written a is equal to, what was the value assigned? 100, because in the constructor I have said a is equal to 100. I have stated that. Now what happens over here? Again I am creating one more object yes2, right? So when I create one more object yes2, every time a new object gets created, the default constructor is run. So again it will print me in the show class constructor. So in the show class constructor, when I create s2 object, that time also it will print me, because the default constructor is run, and again a is equal to 100. For s2 object also, the value of the data member a gets initialized to 100. After that I am getting out of my program. So s1 and s2 objects gets destroyed. So when the first, how does it get destroyed? The destructor is called. So when for the yes object the destructor is called, what happens? In the show class I have written that in the show class destructor, that would be printed for the yes object. Again for S2 also, it should print me that. So again for S2, the destructor is called. When the destructor is called for the S2 object, again this gets printed because I have a cout statement there and I have written it over there. Show. Correct? So this would be the output of my program. So see here, I have created an object. So when you create an object, the default constructor is run, and in that I have a statement, cout statement. So it will print me in the show class constructor, and the data member I have initialized to 100. Then I call the print function. So it will print me the value of a, which is 100. Then again I am creating a new object S2. So when I create an object, the default constructor gets run. So again it will print me in the show class constructor, and again the value of a gets initialized to 100. But then I am not calling s2.print, so that is why I am not printing the value of a. Only once I call the print function, this gets printed. Then after that I am exiting my program. So then when you exit, the objects get destroyed. So what does the where does it deallocates memory? The destructor deallocates memory. So for yes, when the destructor is run, I have a cout statement in the destructor which states that in the show class destructor. So this will get printed. For S2, again the destructor is run and it will print me in the show class destructor. This is the output of the program. This is how the destructor works. Please have a look, and then we come to an end of your constructors and destructors chapter. Hope you have understood it. Please make a note of this. We completed the constructors and destructors chapter. Now we'll be starting with lecture 10, that is inheritance. This chapter, the weightage of this chapter is 5 marks. You will get one 5-mark question. You get one 5-mark question from this chapter. So now we'll start with the objectives. Need for inheritance. Why do I need inheritance? We need to study. Anyway, we have done this in before also, like the chapter 6. We had gone through the, when we went through the OOPS properties, that is basic concepts of C++. In that I have given a brief introduction like what is inheritance. Now we will do in detail the inheritance. So why do I need inheritance? What are the different visibility modes? Like you can have private inheritance, protected and public. So how are they different? What are they? So that we are going to study in visibility modes. Next is the types of inheritance. What are the different types? You have single inheritance, multi-level, multiple, hierarchical and hybrid. I have given you a brief introduction about that in basic concepts of C++. Now we'll do it in detail. Actually, we'll write a program for each, and then what are virtual base classes, we'll be doing it. Apart from that, we will study about constructors and destructors in inheritance and overriding member functions also. So please go through this, then we will start the chapter. So we'll be starting with the definition of inheritance. Like what is inheritance? So inheritance is the capability of acquiring the properties of a base class to form a derived class. Like I think I had given you an example of your different versions of your phone. Like you have a OnePlus phone. So 5, 6, 7, there are different versions of it. So when I create a new version, it is not that I will start it from scratch. I will use the existing features and I will add new features to it to get a new version, right? And it can be the screen size or the quality or the edges or the display and the camera functionality. It can be anything. So I can add new features to the existing one. That is, it will have some existing features. To that I will add something new. That is called inheritance. That is acquiring the properties. So you will get the properties which is already there, and you can add your own properties to create something new. So inheritance is the capability of acquiring the properties of a base class to form a derived class. So here the class from which you derive another class, that class is called base, and the derived class is called the derived class. You can say a parent class and a child class. That is, it is the capability of one class to inherit, to get the properties. Inherit is nothing but to get the properties of another class. So when you inherit, it does not mean that you have your own unique property. You will not have your own unique properties. Like you inherit properties and then you can add on few properties of your own. Getting it? It is a mechanism by which new class is formed or derived using the properties of an existing class. You already have a class. So if you want to add, like if we go to the real life example, we can say that the phone, like I have put years of study to develop so many features. So I need not start something from the scratch. So I will make use of the existing one and I will improvise it, so that I will take out the drawbacks and add new improved security. It can be security, improved quality, so improved support system, so that it will become better. It does not mean that you will not use the existing one. So making use of already what is available and adding new things is nothing but inheritance. That is acquiring or creating a new class from an existing class, wherein the new class acquires the properties of the base class or the already existing class, is called inheritance. So please go through this. This is an example. See, a child gets properties from both its parent, and then apart from that it can have its own unique properties. That is a real life example wherein the child getting properties from both the parents and then having its own. So this is inheritance. Same way they have shown it in animals. Next, the main important topics or the very important classes are the base class and the derived class in inheritance. So what is the base class? Base class is also called as the parent class. And derived class is also called as the child class. Okay. A base class is a class from which another classes are derived. That is, you can create a class from that. That class is called the base class. A class whose properties are inherited by another class. It is also called the superclass. You can also call it as superclass and subclass. Okay. And this also is called the subclass. So a derived class is nothing but the one which gets the properties from the base class, or the new class which gets created from the existing class is called the derived class. Getting it? Please go through this. We will do this in detail from the next class. This is just the introduction I have given. We'll write programs how to derive the types of inheritance. We'll do 1 or 2 programs for each, so that by the end of this chapter you will have no doubts how to write an inheritance program. Please note down today's homework questions. So, what is a copy constructor? Write the syntax and a programming example. What is destructor? Write its syntax and example. Then list the properties or the characteristics of destructors. All these are PU board exam asked 5-mark questions. So all the homework questions which are given till now are all given from the question papers. So all are important. Please do make a note of it, so that in the end, by the end of the year, when you revise, it will help you to get good marks or score well in your exam. So take care. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.